The Last Ride. In House of 1,000 Corpses, we follow a group of young people who have no idea the extremely cruel fate waiting for them. During a road trip, they end up crossing paths with the Firefly family, a very strange group that lives isolated and turns any visitor into part of a macabre show. As the movie goes on, everything becomes more and more chaotic. The characters are separated, captured, and dragged into a system of underground tunnels where things get even more disturbing. That's where Dr. Satan comes in, an almost mythical figure in the story, responsible for grotesque experiments. And just when you think there's no way out, Denise manages to escape. She runs through the tunnels, climbs up, and finally reaches the road, until a car shows up. And who's driving? Captain Spaulding. For those who remember the beginning, he just seemed like an eccentric guy with a horror museum. Here, he becomes her salvation. Denise gets into the car thinking she's finally safe. But out of nowhere, someone appears from the back seat. Otis Driftwood was there the whole time. There was no escape, no luck, it was all an illusion. Spaulding isn't a stranger, he's part of the family. Denise's fate? The movie doesn't even need to show much. She's taken out right there and brought back. The Cursed Hand. If these kids had known the fate this game would bring, they never would have started. In Talk to Me, we follow Mia, a teenager dealing with the grief of losing her mother while getting involved with a group of friends who have a very strange game, an embalmed hand that allows you to talk to spirits. The rule is simple. Hold the hand, say, "Talk to me," and that's it. You open the door.
Talk to me.
The problem is that no one there takes it as seriously as they should. As the movie goes on, Mia gets deeper into it. She starts having frequent contact with a spirit that claims to be her mother, and from that point on, it's over. In the end, this entity completely manipulates Mia. It convinces her that Riley, a boy who was affected by the ritual, needs to die to be freed. And the heaviest part is that, for a moment, she truly believes it. She takes the boy out of the hospital and brings him to a road, ready to do what she thinks is right. But at the last second, she realizes it's not her mother. It never was. And then comes the decision. Instead of pushing Riley, she throws herself in front of the cars. After that, the movie completely shifts perspective. Mia appears in the hospital, but no one responds and no one sees her. She tries to talk, to touch people, but it's over. She just watches her father leaving, Riley recovering, and understands what happened. She died. The lights around her start to fade until only a flame remains, and when she gets close, she's sitting at a table. On the other side, a group of strangers holding the hand. One of them looks forward and says,
"I'll let you in."
"The sacrifice." In The Wicker Man, we follow Sergeant Neil Howie, a deeply religious police officer who travels to an isolated island to investigate the disappearance of a girl. He has no idea what's waiting for him. From the beginning, everything feels off. The locals act suspiciously, treat pagan rituals as normal, and no one seems truly concerned about the girl. Howie insists, investigates, confronts everyone. He believes the girl will be sacrificed in a ritual, and here's the key point. The entire movie makes you think he's the hero who will stop it, but he's not. At the climax, he finally finds the supposed victim and discovers she was never in danger. Everything was staged, an elaborate setup to lure him there, and when it hits him, it's already too late. He realizes he wasn't the savior, he was the sacrifice, and it's not random. He perfectly fits the ritual's criteria. He came to the island of his own free will, represents the law, serves the British crown, and is also a devout Christian and a virgin. In other words, exactly the kind of victim they believe will guarantee a better harvest. The final scene is brutal. Howie is taken to a giant wooden structure, the so-called Wicker Man. He's placed inside along with animals while the villagers gather around. As he panics, praying, screaming, realizing no one is coming to save him, the villagers calmly sing as if it were a celebration. The fire rises and the structure begins to burn, and the movie ends with no rescue, no escape for the hero. The Psychopaths. In Funny Games, we follow a normal family that becomes the victim of two cruel psychopaths. The family is spending vacation at a lake house, father, mother, and son. Everything is peaceful until two polite young men show up asking for eggs. They're Paul and Peter, and within minutes, it's clear they're not there by accident. They enter, take control of the house, and start a completely disturbing psychological game, where the rule is simple: the family has no chance of escape. The entire movie builds this feeling of helplessness. They have nowhere to run, can't fight back, and any attempt at resistance is quickly shut down. At one point, it seems like there will finally be a turning point. The wife, Anna, emotionally broken, manages to grab a gun and shoots one of the attackers. For a few seconds, you think, this is it, now the villains are done. But no, Paul simply grabs a remote control and rewinds the movie. The scene goes back a few seconds, he stops her reaction, and everything continues as if that chance never existed. In the end, on a boat, Anna is the last survivor. Her son and husband are already dead, and now she's tied up with no way to escape. The ending comes in the coldest way possible. Paul just pushes her into the water, and then comes the most disturbing detail. Right after that, the two arrive at another house and repeat the exact same ritual from the beginning, asking for eggs politely as if nothing had happened. Before it ends, Paul looks straight into the camera, at you, and gives a slight smile. The Ratma. The movie VHS 94 is divided into 4 segments, and in the story called Storm Drain, we follow Holly, a sensationalist reporter who will do anything for ratings. She decides to investigate a local urban legend, the so-called Rat Man, known as Ratma, who supposedly lives in the city's sewers. Alongside cameraman Jeff, she enters those dark tunnels thinking she'll come out with a viral story, and ends up finding something much more serious. Down there, things spiral out of control fast. They don't just find traces, they find people, a bizarre group living hidden there, treating the creature like an entity. Before they can escape, both are captured and taken to the cult leader. And then comes the most uncomfortable moment, the presentation of Ratma. The creature is exactly the kind of thing you didn't want to see, a grotesque mix of rat and human features. Without much delay, the ritual begins. Ratma releases a dark substance, and the leader uses it directly on Jeff. He doesn't survive. Holly watches everything, unable to do anything, and then the movie cuts. No explanation, no showing what happened to her. Days later, Holly is back, apparently normal, but during a live broadcast, she starts acting strange, repeating Ratma in the middle of sentences.
People are already lining up to Ratma the hay rides, Apple Ratma.
And out of nowhere, she does exactly what the creature did down there. She vomits acid onto her coworker. While the studio turns into chaos, she just looks at the camera, calm, as if nothing had happened. This segment became one of the most talked about parts of the movie precisely because of the creature's design and the unexpected ending.
I'm Holly Marciano, Channel 6 News. Hail Ratma.
The final move. In Sinister, we meet Ellison Oswalt, a true crime writer who moves with his family into a house where a brutal murder happened. Great idea, right? But there was a reason: money. His plan was simple: investigate everything up close and write a new successful book. But inside the house, he finds boxes with old films, recordings of other families being killed in different ways, and they all have one thing in common: a strange presence watching. That presence is Bughuul, an entity that feeds on children and uses them to continue a cycle of murders. Throughout the movie, Ellison pieces things together and realizes it's not just coincidence. There's a pattern. In the end, thinking he solved everything, he makes a decision. He burns the films and takes his family out of the house. It seems like the right choice, but then comes the twist. Already settled in the new house, he receives a call explaining the detail he ignored. All the families died after they moved. In other words, by leaving, he did exactly what the entity needed. Too late. That same night, he starts feeling strange, until he realizes he's been drugged. Who did it? His own daughter, Ashley. As he tries to react already weak, he sees his entire family unconscious on the floor. And then the movie doesn't hold back. Ashley picks up a camera like in the other cases and starts the recording. The pattern repeats. Everything is filmed and the entire family is killed by their own daughter. After that, she simply disappears, taken by the entity just like the other children. The corpse. In Saw, the entire story revolves around 2 guys trapped in a dirty, abandoned bathroom, Adam and Dr. Lawrence Gordon. They wake up chained, not understanding anything, and receive instructions from someone called Jigsaw, a man who puts victims through psychological games to test how far they'll go to survive. In the middle of the room, there's a corpse, a guy lying on the floor covered in blood, apparently dead, and the entire movie makes you believe that. As time passes, the tension only builds. Gordon finds out his family is in danger, controlled by someone connected to the game. Adam tries to understand what's happening. They argue, panic, and the situation becomes more and more hopeless, until Gordon makes an extreme decision. He cuts off his own foot to free himself, and he actually manages to escape. But in the end comes the big twist, with only Adam still alive in the bathroom. The corpse that had been there the whole time stands up. He was Jigsaw himself, John Kramer. He never left the room, but watched everything, every choice, and every mistake. Adam tries to react, but it's no use. Jigsaw takes control again, reveals that everything was planned, and delivers the line that became the franchise's trademark. And there's one more cruel detail. The key to his chain was in the bathtub from the beginning, but it went down the drain in the first seconds of the movie. In other words, he never had a chance. This ending was filmed on an extremely low budget, and even so, it became one of the most famous plot twists in horror. So much so that it basically defined the style of the entire franchise afterward. The Coronation. In Hereditary, we follow the Graham family dealing with loss, grief, and a series of strange things that start happening after the death of the grandmother, Ellen. In the final minutes, everything completely falls apart. Annie, the mother, already fully affected, tries to destroy a notebook thinking it will stop the curse, but everything goes wrong. Her husband, Steve, ends up burning to death right in front of her with no logical explanation. At that moment, we see the mother who spent the entire movie trying to cope with losing her daughter lose control and become possessed. Then the focus shifts to Peter, the son. He's already psychologically destroyed, trying to understand what's happening, while his own mother starts chasing him through the house. He tries to escape, sees a grotesque scene of his mother killed. himself and, in desperation, throws himself out the window. And then comes the detail that changes everything. Some kind of presence enters his body. Nothing too explicit, but enough to make it clear that something else is in there now. He gets up and walks to the treehouse, as if being guided. Inside, there are several people, as if they had been waiting for that moment for years and the entity needed a male body. And everything, absolutely everything, had been planned from the start to reach that point. One of the women approaches, places a crown on his head. The name revealed is Paimon. Ari Aster built the entire film to function like an inevitable tragedy. No matter what the characters do, they never had a choice. Unresolved trauma. In Smile, we follow Dr. Rose Cotter, a psychiatrist who starts witnessing bizarre things after seeing a happen right in front of her. From that point on, people begin appearing with deeply disturbing smiles, and only she can see it. Her investigation leads her to a conclusion. The entity feeds on trauma and passes from person to person when someone witnesses a death. In other words, it's not just about surviving, it's about not letting the cycle continue. In the end, Rose believes she found the solution. She returns to her childhood home, a place filled with heavy memories, with the idea of facing everything alone and breaking the cycle. And for a moment, it seems to work. She confronts the entity, faces her memories, and apparently wins. She burns everything and leaves. But it's all fake. She shows up at her ex-boyfriend Joel's house looking for help, but something feels off. He starts smiling in that same way, and then it hits. None of that actually happened. Hard cut. She's still in the house. The entity finally reveals the full game, and at that point, there's no more resistance. The creature simply takes over her. When the real Joel arrives, it's already too late. He enters the place and sees Rose, standing there, looking at him, with that smile. And without warning, she does exactly what the curse demands, right in front of him. And just like that, the cycle continues. The game. In the lodge, the story follows Grace, a woman trying to connect with her boyfriend's children during isolation in a cabin in the snow. But there's a heavy detail. She has a traumatic past. She was the sole survivor of a religious cult that ended in a mass suicide. And the kids, Aiden and Mia, know it. The atmosphere is already strange from the beginning, but things get worse when the father, Richard, has to leave and leaves the three of them alone. From that point on, bizarre things start happening. Objects disappear, food vanishes, photos appear suggesting they're dead. It seems supernatural, but it's not. It's all staged. Aiden and Mia planned everything. They hide Grace's medication, kill her dog, and create this scenario to make her believe they're all in purgatory. It's a cold, calculated, and completely irresponsible revenge, because they believe she's responsible for their mother's suicide, who killed herself after Richard told her he was going to marry Grace. But the plan quickly spirals out of control. Without medication and under psychological pressure, Grace collapses. Her past comes rushing back, and she begins to believe in the logic of the cult she grew up in. For her, it's no longer a game. It's a mission. When the father returns, it almost feels like there could be a solution. He tries to calm her down, explain things, but it's too late. Grace is convinced they're already dead, and to prove it, she makes an irreversible decision and shoots Richard, killing him.
You don't get it?
The children try to escape by car, but can't because of the snow. Grace forces them back to the table. The final scene is silent and disturbing. Everyone gathered at the table like a perfect family, but completely broken. She conducts it like a ritual, singing, repeating patterns from her past, and placing tape over their mouths labeled sin. And the movie cuts before the final act, but makes it very clear what comes next. The trophy. In Jeepers Creepers, we follow siblings Derry and Trish, who end up meeting a tragic fate. The movie begins with them driving down a road when they cross paths with a creature that clearly isn't human. This is the Creeper, an entity that wakes up from time to hunt and choose specific body parts from its victims to rebuild itself. After running, investigating, and trying to warn the police, everything escalates quickly. The movie even gives you that false sense that they might escape, especially when they reach the police station, surrounded by armed officers. But it doesn't matter. The Creeper invades the place like it's nothing, ignores everyone, and goes straight for Derry. It grabs the boy and flies away through the window. Trish is left there, helpless, offering her own life in exchange for her brother's, and is simply ignored. Cut to the final sequence, a quiet, isolated place. The Creeper is there working calmly, and then comes the reveal. He chose Derry's eyes, and the final image is disturbing. The monster's eyes appear, but in a deeply unsettling way. The silence. This one is uncomfortable from beginning to end, but the ending is what really destroys you. In Speak No Evil, we follow a Danish couple, Bjørn and Louise, who meet another family during a trip. The atmosphere is already strange from the start, with the other couple acting suspiciously, along with their supposed son who doesn't speak at all. But they ignore the warning signs and accept an invitation to visit these new friends at their house. And then that growing discomfort begins. Small things that feel wrong, gradually becoming unbearable. In the end, everything completely collapses. Bjørn discovers the truth. That couple, Patrick and Karin, aren't just weird. They do this all the time. They lure families in, kill the parents, and keep the children. And worse, he finds evidence of multiple previous victims, including the boy who was living with them. Even so, he doesn't react the way you expect. He tries to leave without properly explaining anything to his wife, hesitates, turns back, and that's when the movie hits you hard. That passiveness costs everything. The situation spirals out of control when they are intercepted. With no real resistance, Björn and Louise end up surrendering again to their own killers. And then comes one of the most disturbing scenes in the movie. Their daughter, Agnes, is forced to undergo mutilation to take on the role of the new child. After that, the parents' fate is sealed. They're taken to an isolated place, forced to accept what's about to happen. And the most absurd part is that they still try to understand why.
Why are you doing this? Because you let me.
The answer comes simply, there they are stoned to death. No fight, no comeback, no heroic last act, just the end. The film uses this ending as a social critique, showing how avoiding conflict at all costs can put you in situations where it's already too late to react. On the screen is a video where we show some horror movies you won't believe actually exist. Click and watch. See you there.